Hello and welcome to the video. This is a quick video on this new quad from DarwinFPV. This is the CineAPE 25. Now I've looked at a few other quads from DarwinFPV and I'm always impressed because unlike some of the other people out there making these kind of ready to fly things, the DarwinFPV stuff is a little bit less expensive. So it's kind of in the price range of a lot more pilots, but they do put a lot of thought and love into these things, and this 25 is the latest one, so I thought I'd get it in and we'll have a go. Now this is available in a couple of different versions. It comes with walk snail and I've got the analog version here. So it's been a while since I've reviewed an analog quad, but lots of you pilots out there I know are still flying analog. Over 60% of all my viewers last time we did a poll are still flying analog and waiting for digital HD, maybe making a choice in the spring. So let me unbox this and go through the specs, talk about some of the cool stuff. Let's give it a fly and see what it's like. So the big thing with this is like that kind of big whoop style where it has a high strength one-piece injection molded prop guard. Very useful because it means that you can bounce off stuff. I've been very happy flying much closer into obstacles with this, knowing that if I hit something it's just going to bounce off it rather than destroy a prop, potentially snap an arm. Battery life claimed on this is up to 9 minutes. We'll see what that is in a moment. I think 9 minutes is optimistic, gentle flying, potentially without any kind of action camera installed. So again, this is the DarwinFPV CineAPE 25. It's an X-style layout. 6 bladed props. Wheelbase is 112mm. Dimensions of this thing isn't particularly big. It's a nice size for flying around large indoor environments and also flying outside as well. So it's about 160 by 160 by 43mm. Flight controller on this is an F411 based thing, and it does have 30 amp 3 to 4S ESCs. I'm running mine on 4S here. Again, as I said in the introduction, this happens to be the analog version, comes with a Cadix Ant. Not a fan of the Ant, unfortunately, but we'll see how it performs here in a moment, with a 600 milliwatt analog VTX. But excitingly, there is also a HD version, which is the Cadix Walk Snail one, which comes with the Avatar Mini 1S that I looked at recently, which is a nice unit, and I'm tempted maybe to put my one of those in here. Motors are 1504 3600 kV, and those propellers are HQ Prop T63 MMX6 propellers. Recommended battery for this is an 850 mAh 4S pack. They reckon you'll get about 9 minutes hovering time. Realistically, I think you're going to get a little bit less, and I'll talk about what I got. I'm using a slightly smaller battery to make it a little bit more nimble. I'm using a 650 mAh battery rather than the recommended 850. So let's have a very quick look at the configuration. Now I can plug it into the computer. Again, diff and dump are going to be down below. So let's first of all plug the thing in and turn on expert mode, have a quick look at the tabs. Ports are configured for this, so the only thing we have is the serial receiver. I've got mine running on S-Bus, which is how it comes by default. Mine didn't come with a receiver, and we've also got smart audio for the VTX as well. Configuration: 8K gyro, 4K PID loop frequencies. CPU load is pretty high, running about 52% there at the bottom, but then it's an F4 based flight controller. This is how it's set up, pretty standard stuff here. Power and battery is set like this, seems to work okay. Failsafe is set to drop, which is what you want. PID tuning, as you'll see in a moment from the flying, is very relaxed and gentle, but for a kind of a filming mini quad like this, that's exactly what you want. Although you can get quite a turn of speed out of this thing, it can hoop around when you need to. Receiver, again, set for S-Bus by default. This is how it comes. You could also set it up for other stuff as well, but the little cable that comes on it is kind of designed to be plugged or soldered onto an S-Bus receiver. Modes are set like this. I would definitely come in here and play with the modes. This is a slightly unusual way to do it. Basically, auxiliary 1 arms it and puts it into angle, so they're not expecting you to use horizon, even though you can flip and roll. On-screen display looks like this. I'd definitely come in here and move things around. Everyone has their own particular way of doing it. Video transmitter for my analog version here is all set up and the table's all loaded. It's pretty much ready to rock and roll. Again, dump and diff are down below if you want to go and have a look. In terms of flying is an awful lot of fun. The noise level from those multi-bladed props is a little bit higher than I would like. It's very, very kind of a high whine buzz, which does mean that even when it's a reasonable distance away from you, you can still hear it. And if you blip the throttle, then everyone in the field that you're in is going to hear it as well. But it does give it quite a little bit of punch. Hovering at below 50% throttle, and I'm getting about 4.5 minutes out of a 650 milliamp hour pack without an action camera. I'm getting just under 4 minutes with an action camera, something like a Peanut or something like the Runcam Thumb Pro on the nose. Obviously, you're going to get a little bit more flight time if you use that 850 milliamp hour pack that's recommended. Tune is nice and gentle, as we've already looked at, and it does have the ability for crisp rolls and flips if you really want to. I don't think that's what it's designed for, but it does show you how nimble it can be if you want to fly it in horizon or rate mode to get some more aggressive filming in tighter spaces where those protected props are going to come in handy. The one thing that's letting it down is unfortunately the image from that Caddx Ant. I kind of already alluded to this, but I'm not a fan of the Caddx Ant. I don't think it's a particularly good camera. I don't think that it does a great job, and it's performing in exactly the same way here on this model. So for me, if I was getting one of these, I would probably swap that out with something else, or ideally I think the walk snail version of this would be my preferred version, and it's going to be a little bit more expensive, but walk snail in that 1S kit is going to give you a much nicer view and allow you to fly very close to and around stuff while still being able to see it clearly. You can see here that even though I'm flying around the goalposts, I'm not really getting a clear view until I'm pretty close, and if I'm moving at speed, I'm already going to hit it before I can correct and get out the way. There is also a little bit of noise from the VTX here, and there is a cap fitted already, so they have obviously tried to sort that out, but there is a little bit of interruption and problem with noise. So there's a lot of things that I like here. I like the size, I like the design, I like the optional foam bumper strip that can go around the outside that comes in the box. That means if you are flying it indoors and you bump into stuff, not only you're not going to damage the quad, you're also not going to damage the thing you've bumped into. Easy to get this under 250 grams if that's important to you. With my 650 gram battery and the model itself, I'm getting under 250. Now, in lots of places, as soon as you add a camera, the whole 250 limit kind of becomes a moot point. But if that's important to you, it's good to know that you can. There is obviously a room for a small action camera at the front. Again, it's not a massive amount of room and it doesn't have a huge carrying capacity. So Runcam Thumb Pro or something like your Caddx Peanut would be my go-tos for this. Also quite a fan of the fact that they're not asking ridiculous money for this. The price of everything has gone up thanks to all the issues that we've had over the past 2 or 3 years. And it does mean that more pilots can afford to get their hands on a nicely built, well put together model like this. I do like the fact that they've also made the frame very easy to take apart. Just with one hex driver, you can kind of take out a handful of screws and the whole kind of middle tower drops out, which gives you access to everything if you want to play around. But even though the onboard USB connector for the flight controller is hidden away inside the model, you don't have to take it apart in order to plug it in. They've very cleverly thought of that, and there is a USB-C connector hidden away here at the front of the model underneath where you would mount an action cam. Just peel back the rubber grommet and you can plug it into your computer and do the configuration from here. That's a really smart design decision. So there's only a couple of things to be aware of with this. First of all, I'm not a fan of the FPV performance in this analog setup. The HD FPV option would be my choice, or potentially replacing that Caddx Ant with something else. It is wired for S-Bus by default. I know lots of pilots will want to put CRSF on there, so maybe that should be a consideration for DarwinFPV when they're building these things in future, give you that option. It has a linear antenna at the back, so be aware of that. Ideally what you want are linear antennas on your goggles. I think for the extra weight, I'd personally preferred some form of very small lollipop style circular polarized. And those 6 blades do make for quite a high whine and quite an inefficient creation of thrust. It does keep the model nice and small, but it does mean that you get shorter flight times, and there is that extra little bit of noise as you're flying around. And the other thing, of course, is that unfortunately, although Darwin FPV are obviously working very hard to keep the price within the range of most pilots, because the price of the components are going up, the price of this stuff is as well. So in summary, this is a very nice little quad. This is a great option if you want to have something that you can fly around outside, fly around indoors. The setup's really nice. The only thing that's letting this down is the performance of that FPV setup. Thank you for spending your time today watching that video. You can find me in all the usual places on social media, and if you're trying to learn about a subject, then check out the playlist. All of my videos are organized into easy to follow playlists that if you're trying to learn a topic will take you from the basics right the way through to some pretty advanced stuff.